What's up everybody, Fortexfiend here, and welcome back again to my channel where I'm going to be talking more SD Gundam G Generation Eternal. As you can tell by my screen, I think you guys know what the topic of this video is going to be. I'm going to be talking specifically about the SSR GACHA Shuffle Alliance units that are currently available on the banner and giving you guys my overall analysis and letting you guys know, personally from me, if these units are worth using your SP coins on. Now, before we get started, you guys know the drill. If you guys enjoy what you see on the channel, subscribe, notification bell, like and dislike, and comment down below if you pulled these units and what you think so far. That being said, because these units are SSRs, please do not go out of your way to chase them. They are not limited. They've never done limited SSR units. So these will go in future banners that we get later on. And if there's a banner that you are waiting for, you don't have any of these, well, there's a better chance that you could get these units on those banners. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with my personal favorite, which is going to be Gundam Maxter. So one of the things that sticks out about this particular defensive style unit is that one of its skills has a range of 4. I actually like that in terms of positioning. And as you can see right here, that particular skill has a pretty decent power at 5,280. And it does have a small debuff, decreasing special weapon power by 20%. Obviously, this is not going to be comparable to like a UR, but for an SSR unit, especially for specific stages where you have to run, let's say, Unstoppable, because it does have the Unstoppable tag, or let's say you have to run them in the G Gundam only stages, such as the ones that we got in Eternal Road, then this is a solid unit to bring, and that debuff is definitely going to be helpful. Not only that, but it does have another access to a debuff, which is attack down 30%, assuming you're leveling the skill all the way up to 5, which you should be. Let's just do that right now, because why not, right? The only issue that I have with the skill is that it requires it to be a little bit more in close, meaning that it has to be at up to a 2 range versus a 4. You got to get a little bit in close. So when it comes to positioning, you just want to be mindful of that, because if this unit is too close up to the front, whatever stage that you're playing, usually the AI, at least from what I've observed, is they tend to target the nearest target. So if you're going to be using this, just keep in mind that you got to get a little bit in close. So you want to make sure your positioning is okay. So that way, you know, your actual, let's say your attackers are getting targeted first, and then this unit can still jump in and defend because it's not all the way in the front. Other than that, it also has good abilities with defense up. It has a conditional defense up, which is always nice. It has a special damage mitigation, and it also does have the shield defense mechanism, which I think like almost every defensive unit should like have that, but we know that there's some defensive units that don't have that. And then in terms of its tags, it has Ace Unit and also Unstoppable. Rival is on there too, and also Alternative Series. So that you got some really flexible tags there depending on the type of team that you want to build. But all in all, I think this unit is solid. Do I think it's worth your SP coins? If it's a favorite, perhaps, because even when it comes to pulling, or when it comes to, for example, using your SP coins, if you have a favorite, go for your favorite, because first and foremost, you want to have fun. And if you want your favorite unit to be, you know, beefed up, then by all means go ahead. But objectively speaking, I say it's a decent choice. I'd say, you know, there's better defensive units that are SSRs that you could use your SP conversion coins on. Some of them are actually also free, but if you want to use it on Gundam Maxter, I think it's a decent what do you call it? It's a decent viable option, but it's not going to be my first choice if I were to come at this objectively. I think it's a solid defensive unit. I think it has nice range with up to 4, so that way you have a little bit easier positioning. But in terms of using those SP coins, I think it's an all right choice. It's not the best choice in my personal opinion. And if we take a look at the respective pilot, which is Chibodee, Chibodee actually has some really good skills in attack burst and force guard. I'd say those are pretty solid for a defensive styled pilot. The attack burst is it's cool for a defensive styled unit. It would have been nice if maybe he had for example, like an HP restore, because I like seeing that on defensive pilots. But the force guard is nice, that way he's able to mitigate a little bit more damage. And then he does have double support defense, which I always say that's a plus when it comes to defensive styled pilots. He also has you know, increasing his own accuracy and evasion, which is pretty nice. So a little bit of natural evasion there. And then if he's piloting a mobile fighter G Gundam unit with that tag, you get that additional support defense. So as long as you put him in a mobile fighter G Gundam unit, then you're good to go on that double support defense. Stat wise, he's okay. I'd say he's all right. We've seen better numbers on defensive styled units, but all in all, he's a solid pilot, just like his respective unit that he has. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and talk about Dragon Gundam, which is going to be the attacker of the Shuffle Alliance SSR from the gacha. So right off the bat, solid attack. If you actually do SP coin this, it does hit a base of like around a little over 11,000, so not the highest, but it climbs a little bit higher if you factor in its conditional attack up by 10%. So it hits more like the 12,000 threshold, which is always nice. It also has increased defense, which is good, so that way it has a little bit of extra defense there. Unfortunately, it doesn't have shield mechanism, but it is an attacker type unit. It would have been nice to have it, but it does not have it on this particular unit. Okay, and its actual skills. So this one has a range of all the way up to 3. Not necessarily the greatest when it comes to an attacker type unit, but I totally get it that this unit is more of like a melee oriented unit, considering that Saici is also a martial artist. This one wants your HP to be higher. So you want to make sure that if you're going to be using this unit as one of your attackers, it has protection. It has ways to be able to get out. Unfortunately, you know, with a range of 3, it's a little bit tricky when it comes to positioning for this unit. And then afterwards, it also does have a really powerful skill at 5,640 for an SSR unit, where the closer you are to the enemy, the greater the weapon power. So this one is pretty cool. It does have that, you know, that caveat of you want to be up in close. The only thing is that it kind of just makes you want to use the UR Burning Gundam more, because at least that one has that really cool passive where enemies want to get in close, because if they're not, it gets that auto mitigation of about like, what's that, like 30%. This doesn't have it, unfortunately. I mean, it is an SSR, so it can have everything, but this doesn't have it. So with this one, you just got to be a bit more mindful if you're going to be deciding to use this as your attacker. If we take a look at tags, it's pretty much kind of the same thing as the last Gundam that we looked at. It has Ace Unit, Unstoppable, Rival, Alternative Series, all that good stuff. So would I use my SP coins for this? Now, when it comes to using your SP coins, the priority should always be attackers first, because the stats matter most for your attackers, because the higher the stats, the more damage they're going to do, followed by your defenders, because the stats will help your defenders out to survive. And then last but not least, the lowest priority is going to be your supporters. Unless the supporter has like an outstanding kit. There's a few out there that do, that I've named before, such as like, you know, Wing Gundam Zero. Even the Shining Gundam that you could farm for free from the Fierce Enemy Assault is like an exception, because they have some really solid kits. But generally, attackers, you're going to want to SP coin them. However, when it comes to Dragon Gundam, I hate to say it, but it's all right. And we currently have another DPS unit that you could get for free, which is the Bjarland. I'm sorry if I butchered that. That thing is really good for a free unit, and I went over it on my last video. And if you're going to be using your SP coins, I'd much rather use it on that than Dragon Gundam. Dragon Gundam is cool. I know we all love G Gundam, but even if attacker type units should be on the priority list of the totem pole for SP coins, I would think twice before SP coining this one. But if it's one of your favorites, then by all means go ahead. And I think one of the saving graces, if you do decide to use this unit as your attacker, is its pilot is actually quite good. So Saici has some pretty good skills, melee boost and boost critical. So he has a higher chance to crit if you pop that, which is always nice. And then he's also a double chance step attacker. So remember how UR Domon doesn't have the double chance step just to balance him out? I think it's because they just give it to Saici. Saici kind of stole that from him. But anyways, increased damage dealt, also has an increased accuracy and evasion, and then he has that double chance step. So the pilot is kind of a saving grace for the actual unit. So if you run them together, then maybe you could make a potential argument of, yeah, man, let's go ahead and use our SP coins on Dragon Gundam. But honestly, I think there's better options for attackers to use your SP coins on over Dragon Gundam. But if you still like Dragon Gundam, then by all means, go ahead and use it. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to Gundam Rose, or Rose, however you want to say it. I'm going to take this off just so I don't get confused when it comes to the stats. So this is going to be another defensive unit, and it has a little bit more defense compared to Gundam Maxter. It has better range overall. As you can see, 2 of its skills have a range of 4 and 5 respectively. So positioning for this particular defensive unit is going to be, I would say it's a lot easier compared to Gundam Maxter. And if we take a look at what those actually do, the 4 range skill, just a standard skill, unfortunately. The 5 range skill is an attack down of 25%, so not as good as Maxter, but the range is better, so the positioning is going to be a lot easier for this one. And then afterwards, Chevalier Saber does have a decreased physical weapon power by 25%, which is always nice. So this one definitely has better range compared to Maxter. So the positioning is going to be a little bit easier on this one. In terms of abilities, you also have increased defense. It also has a conditional one, giving it more defense. And instead of special damage reduce, it's going to be physical damage reduce. So this one is going to be the one you want to send out against like enemies that use a lot of physical attacks, because it does have that particular type of mitigation. It also does have shield defense, which is always nice. And just like its other counterparts, it has Ace Unit, Unstoppable, Rival, and Alternative Series. They all share that, so very flexible in the tags. Would I SP coin this one? Between this one and Maxter, it's a toss-up. I'd say this one edges out just by a little bit. Even though Maxter has the better attack down, this one has the better range, and I actually like the range better over the actual better debuff, in my personal opinion, in this case. Because this way, with Rose, you can actually position a little bit better, like behind the frontline unit. So then that way you can keep them at maximum distance. You could still apply the debuff. And when that frontline unit, like your attacker, for example, gets targeted, the defender unit will come in and defend. So I would say if you were going to SP coin between this one and Maxter, I'd say this one takes it. The only thing is that its pilot, I don't think is... Well, its pilot is missing the whole double support defense. In terms of his actual skills, and my apologies that I don't have him fully max leveled up. I've been busy playing Final Fantasy VI Evil East Chronicles, so I haven't really had a chance to farm. I do think the skills for George is a little bit more desirable compared to what's his name, Chibodee. I like the HP repair and I do like the MP up. The only thing that makes me really sad is no double support defense. Instead, you get a little bit more damage and a little bit more damage reduction. But to be quite honest, if you're going to be giving him a heal, why couldn't they just give him a double support defense? So this would be the only thing that would hold me back from using the SP coins on his actual unit. Because, you know, you want to use him with his own unit, right? Even though these units tend to be a little bit more flexible with the mobile fighter G Gundam tag. It's just a lack of double support defense, which to me, you know, units that have that is always a plus in my book. Last but not least, Bolt Gundam. So this is the supporter unit. It has a range of up to 4 with its particular weapon skills. If we take a look at what that 4 range is, it's inflict damage taken from special weapons up 30%. That's an excellent debuff. Again, a majority of the more powerful attacks tend to be special. It also does have damage taken from physical weapons up 20%. So this would benefit units that primarily use more physical skills. So for example, a lot of the G Gundam units tend to do that because, again, very martial arts based type of a series. In terms of its abilities, it has increased mobility, increased defense, and increased accuracy. That's always nice. Increased accuracy does help in case you're afraid of being able to, you know, miss the attack and not inflict that debuff, because when it comes to supporters, the most important thing is you want to make sure that you're able to inflict those debuffs. It's not necessarily about their stats, but inflicting that debuff that you want on there so your actual damage dealers are dealing more damage. Tags, again, same as its counterparts. It has all 4 of the ones that I've highlighted that are very, very good, which is awesome. But when it comes to SP coins, this one doesn't really have anything that stands out in terms of its actual kit. Wing Zero is definitely better. Shining Gundam from the Fierce Enemy Assault, to me, is much better investment if you're going to be using an SP coin on a supporter unit. So I would definitely not suggest using SP coins unless this is an absolute favorite of yours. In terms of the pilot for this particular unit, we have Argo. I like the boost range. Not too much of a fan on the lock-on. I get it because you want that accuracy to be able to, again, inflict a debuff and deal a little bit of damage, but I would have preferred something else over that. Maybe like increasing movement for better positioning, or increasing attack for just a little bit more damage. But I'd say he has one really good skill and one all right skill, and then his actual abilities, I think, is what saves him a little bit, because he does get double support, which is always nice. His first ability, though, is more about weapon energy consumption reduction. I would have rather had maybe a little bit more damage He also does have mobile trace system, increasing accuracy in the evasion, and so all of these pilots have that, which I think is kind of cool. And then he does have the double support. So I think that's the saving grace when it comes to this particular unit right here. The pilot is actually pretty solid with the double support outside of the lock-on, because I'm not a big fan of lock-on. I think lock-on and energy like replenishment is probably the least prioritized skills in my opinion. But all in all, I think the priority for SP coining these 4 particular units, Dragon Gundam, yeah, because it's an attacker, you want more damage, but there are better attackers. I'm just going to let you guys know, but he is an attacker, so attackers do get the priority. And then I would say Gundam Rose, followed by Gundam Maxter, and then down at the bottom is going to be Bolt Gundam. But this is going to go ahead and conclude my analysis and review, and also should you be SP coining the SSR Gacha Shuffle Alliance. Let me know what you guys think down below. Did you guys decide to SP coin one of these units? Let me know what you think. Let me know how they've been performing for you in the stages that we've gotten. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Thank you guys again for watching. Stay tuned for the next video and stay blessed, everybody.